to start.
What? Hey, everybody, we're live. My name is Andy Petranek. This is Dr. Sean Pastuch, and we are going to talk about movement and mobility and exercise and keeping people out of pain, getting people out of pain and keeping them moving, right? I mean, I was doing every day I go live and I do a mobility thing. It's just what I do to kind of warm myself up after years of doing it in the gym and teaching other people what to do. I don't teach anything. I barely tell anybody what I'm doing. I just go live and I just do it. And this morning I was just talking. I find myself talking about why, what I'm doing and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it actually helps me to remember why the fuck I'm doing it. Why do I show up and do this every day? Because I've noticed over the last 2 months since I've been doing it that my audience is dwindling. Like, it started off, I had 40 people that would show up to these lives. I don't know if they were watching or doing it with me, but they were showing up. And now it's down to this morning there were 3. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't really care. This is helpful to me. This is actually serving me, and I'm going live. The liveness of it helps me to remind me to show the hell up. And if you're smart, you'll do it too. Because I'm going to be grateful in 30 years when I've continued this and I'm still moving, and you're not. So
it's the accountability to yourself, right? You're by putting it online, you're saying this is going to happen, and now you have to be I talk to gym owners about this all the time. I'm like, bad gym owners don't show up when no one signs up for class. Great gym owners show up and pray that one person walks in.
Right.
So that's the difference. So you're showing up.
Right. Yeah. No. It really does matter, and it matters for me. I know it's cliche. Be the change you want to see in the world, but it's this weird thing around doing good for others and doing good for ourselves. Which comes first? I find that this practice is doing really good things for me. It's very selfish. It's very, very selfish. And yet I also see that it's doing good for the world, if the world will choose to pay attention, and that's, slowly slipping away.
Well, it's interesting. We're in a really weird time now as we speak on June 4th. And, it's everyone wants to know what they're supposed to be doing. And the answer I keep on giving people is leaning into the things that make you uncomfortable because you don't understand them.
100%.
And if you're telling yourself a story that I can't move, it hurts me when I do this, and it bothers you, and just saying that bothers you, how could you lean into that to understand why you're struggling to move so that can be a story you stop telling yourself? And that's what we're telling people right now.
Yeah, no, it's a scary thing. I was just composing a post before we came on, which is why my computer crashed and I was a little bit late in jumping on. But I was talking about how uncomfortable I've been for the last week, given after George Floyd's death and all that's been going on around race and Black Lives Matter, and how different the context of life has shown up for me since. It literally changed for me personally overnight. And I've just been listening and watching and listening and watching and listening and watching and wanting to know what to do. And I haven't really known what to do. And today I've had conversations. I've had, today felt like, okay, now I'm ready to start posting. Now I'm ready to start actually putting some things up on my social media and talking about this, because I'm getting a little bit more solid footing. I've been so off for a week.
Yeah, I suffer from a disease called romantic pragmatism. What that means is I want this big picture thing to happen. And because I want it to happen, I have the urgency to, right now, let's go, let's do this. This is the first step. And it might be the wrong first step, but at least if we fail, we can fail forward. So let's go. And the reason I say I suffer from that is because I like to move at speeds that make other people fairly uncomfortable. And moving any slower than that makes me fairly uncomfortable. So in a moment like right now in time, I was already fighting a battle on the healthcare front. And now it's like, whoa, we got people coming from over here. We got to mind that one as well. And I don't mean to say that we're fighting against it. I mean, we're fighting for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the discomfort, I just decided it has to be mine because I'm willing to move at a pace that other people aren't, and I have to move at the pace that they want to be at.
Right. Right.
Maybe a little faster than them.
Because you have to serve yourself, because otherwise it comes across as inauthentic. You know, like I can't have a coach a class that is a class that I would teach, because they're not me. They can't show up as me. They can't teach with the same style. They can't use the same examples because they're not me. They can have the same fundamental principles that they're teaching, and they can use their own. Like one of my longtime coaches, Shirley Brown, you know, her beginnings of her classes were very much like, I used to call it like romper room. It was really fun. She would do these like elementary school games. We'd play dodgeball. I would never do those things in my class. Not that I don't like them. I would love taking classes like that where we do those really super fun things. You know, we go do people's names and what they do for a living. And then she would use that as a functional engagement tool for moving into what we were going to cover in class. But, you know, she's got to do it her way. And that, because that serves us to connect with her. Just like you have to do it your way, because it serves me to hear it through the way you see life.
Filtered in a way that the people can understand it.
Yes.
Yes.
So let's tell everybody a little bit more about what you do. I'm gonna close my door here real quick because I'm about to get some noise. So you can start talking, and I'm not going away.
Yeah. So what I do is I own two companies whose aim is both to essentially be a Trojan horse to have people feel better about themselves and what their impact is in the world. And what I mean by that is one of our companies helps people get out of pain without going to the doctor or missing the gym or giving up their active lifestyle, no matter how long they've been in pain, no matter where they live in the world. The other company teaches healthcare providers and fitness providers how to do that for their clients. So we handle both sides of the spectrum. And I was just speaking with somebody else prior to jumping onto this call about how both of those things are just the narratives that get people to come talk to us. And the reality is they're both Trojan horses to help develop better people. Because you're not going to get out of pain. You're not going to improve your mobility. You're not going to improve your flexibility. You're not going to improve your diet unless if you believe it's worth it to go through the discomfort that is required to do it. And unless if you believe that going through that discomfort is going to work. So before we can bring people in and say, okay, great, your first step is do this test, they have to understand and adopt the belief that doing this test is worth it. What must be true for them to adopt the belief system that these tests are worth it? That's where we start. And that's a big part of what makes us so different about the way that we approach helping people is instead of just jumping in and throwing tactics, here's the stretch for this, here's the corrective exercise for that. We start with the beliefs that those corrective exercises, those stretches will work. The education around how long they're going to take, when we're going to pivot from doing something that has no weight to adding weight, so that it's predictable for the person who's doing it that, okay, it makes sense that now it's time for me to do something different. What I was doing before got me from there to here. But if I want to get from here to there, I have to do something different. They understand that before they start anything.
How do you get someone to make that leap? Like I've got a real world example. My mother-in-law has been suffering with what we thought was sciatic pain for like just right before the COVID thing started, just before the lockdown started. And she's 85, 86, 83. I don't know. She's old. And she's, I mean, in relative terms to me, compared to me, she's 30 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And she's not fit, you know, well, I mean, not fit in the way you and I think of fitness. But she's scared. Like she hasn't been able to go get she got a couple MRIs. She did go in and get a shot in her back. It didn't do any good. I've been encouraging her with different exercises, but I'm stuck right now because I told my wife, I'm like, look, I want to help her, but she's got to want the help. She's got to decide that the help is worth it. And she's willing to experiment with things that might not work. I can't tell her that I know the answer. Look, I'm not you. So, maybe I need to hire you to fly out here and help her out.
Well, there's a few things to that. The first thing is it's impossible to be an expert unless you live 50 miles away.
Huh?
No one thinks you're an expert if they know you. So
right.
you have to be at least 50 miles away. It has to be some kind of I can only get access.
I love that. You're 100% right.
Right. So that's the.
You mean your college friends don't call you up and ask you for advice?
They still call me Stoochbag.
Yeah, they call me Petch. It's like they don't take anything that I say seriously. Nothing.
I mean, I told them I was going to stop doing fantasy football last year. And they were like, we're going to tell your Instagram followers that you decided to turn quitter. Hashtag turn quitter. Turn pro my ass. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. But not because I'm afraid of that, but because I just want to beat you and talk trash to you all year.
Right.
So, yeah, you have to be somewhere else. Someone has to either not know you for the flaws that you bring to the table prior in a real experiential way. Or because I don't recommend being fake either. Right. I think leading with vulnerability, creating commonality is a really valuable way to gain trust. So don't lie. Don't create a false persona. But the person who saw you do one dumb thing after another is going to require a certain level of seeing you do really, really, really smart and elevated things before you can wash away all the dumb stuff you did in your teens.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, that's all. It takes being further away. The next part of it is before you even try to get your mother-in-law to change her behavior, I think it's asking her straight up, do you believe that a behavior change would fix this? And if she says no, it's, may I ask you some questions about that? Sure. Why don't you believe behavior change can fix this? And see if you can bring that conversation to a place where a behavior change did fix something that maybe she didn't think that it would. And ask her what makes that different than this. And then go to the differences that she describes. And your job is to find the similarities.
Right.
In those differences. And to be able to help her come up with the idea that maybe this actually will work.
Yeah, connect the dots. Help her connect the dots.
And when it's someone who's that close to you, it usually takes much longer.
Right.
It's not going to be one conversation. My father was here in my gym. Here, I'll show you. If I can, without moving everything. No, we're in a gym.
Nice. You just pulled back the curtain. You're the Wizard of Oz.
I was going to whiteboard. I'm not going to whiteboard. My father.
Sean, do you happen to have a microphone anywhere close by that you could use or no?
I do, but I'd have to hook you up to my entire podcast setup. Is my audio really bad?
It's if you stand closer, it'll probably get better.
It's tinny.
Yeah, right? It's tinny. It's tinny and a little bit broken. So I've turned you up on my end, but I've done. That's all I can do.
I apologize for that. When I use the podcast set, I'm sitting in a chair.
Right.
I think there's a big microphone in my face, and typically it doesn't come through on your side any better unless I send you my audio.
Right.
Which we can do in the future if you'd like.
Let's do it. All right, in the future. Not this time. Okay. This is live. This is too live.
Yeah. So my father was sitting right over there on that bench 3 days ago, bent over doing concentration curls. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm working my biceps. Like, why? I love the guy. He's 67 years old. He's 50 pounds overweight. He, dysfunctional as can be in terms of his joint health and his dexterity and his agility now. I'm like, first of all, that's you're not even doing that right. So why? I was like, let's do this. I'm like, I want to help you. We're going to do everything based off of one rule. Any exercise you do has to include at least 2 joints. That's it. That's the rule. And he's a retired doctor, so he understands what a joint means.
Yeah.
I'm like, that means if you're doing a bicep curl, it has to include some kind of shoulder extension. Right? If you're doing a lateral raise, right, you have to be standing. Let's just start there so that your spine is stabilizing.
Yeah, but you got to be careful, Sean, because he's going to start doing knee raises while he does his lateral raise.
So then I was like, I'm going to teach you one exercise per day that you're going to just spend the rest of the time building competency in that exercise. That's your fitness for the day. So the first thing I taught him was an axe chop on a cable column with a pivot.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Whole day. That was it. Like, we spent 30 minutes. I'm like, you're just going to do this. An impromptu training session that I didn't have time for, but I love my dad. And his response to that is, I need more. I need more. I'm like,
yeah,
you do need more. And if I give you all of that right now, you won't remember this.
Right.
And then you won't be able to do any of it. So it was selling to him the idea that let's think of this as a 6-month-long process to competency instead of a 6-month-long process to the body type he wants. And then leveraging that competency for the next 6 months and start working towards that body type. And you bought into it.
I used to, it's funny you brought up concentration curls. I used to kick people out of the gym for doing bicep curls. Like, this is when I first opened CrossFit LA in 2004. Like, yeah, you're doing bicep curls, you're out.
Dude,
you're out. You're no longer, you're out. I mean, I haven't done a bicep curl in years, and I still got guns.
Yeah, I actually haven't, but you know, whatever. I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you don't think bench press is functional, right? If you don't think bench press is functional, my wife loves good pecs, and we have 3 kids. It works.
It works, right?
So, but I'm with you. More.
Chin-ups, dude. Chin-ups. I'm fine with chin-ups. You don't need bicep curls.
I'll do whatever. I've been punching a punching bag and running lately. That's
great. That's great.
100%.
Yeah.
What I think would be valuable for your listeners to be able to start thinking about how they can go through that. What am I looking to use here? The process that you want your mother-in-law to be able to go through, right? Is, okay, today maybe you have shoulder pain, and if I asked you to do this, maybe you couldn't. Maybe you'd be like, it's about what I got. And your question is, I've had this for 10 years. Like, it's not going to change. I have a bad shoulder. And if they're listening or if they're watching this after we've recorded it, and they're saying to themselves, there's no reason for me to do anything. This is who I am. What I urge you to think about first and foremost is how you're talking to yourself. That's the first thing you have to consider. Because if you went to a date with another couple, who you and your wife, or you and your husband, or you and your girlfriend, or you and your boyfriend, or a friend you go out with, I don't care if you're in a relationship, and the person who you go out with all the time breaks out the menu, and they go to read it, and they're like, close it, and they're like, still can't read. So dumb. Like, why don't you learn to read? I haven't been able to read my whole life. Like, I'm not going to learn how to read now. Immediately, you would probably be a little bit uncomfortable just with the energy that person was emitting about their own capacity to improve. And maybe you tolerate it once. You go out with them again. It happens again. And you're like, I don't want to be around this person. They're so negative about themselves. But when it comes to the old football injury, or the slipped disc, or the arthritis in the shoulder, the torn rotor cuff, right? It's, everybody understands when you're like, oh yeah, no, it's my bad shoulder. It's the same thing. It's the same thing as saying, I'm just so dumb, I'm never going to learn how to read. And the reality is, you have the authority to change that. And what we tell clients before we even allow them to sign up with us is, we can't take you as a client until you acknowledge that the reason you're still in pain is because you have not yet figured out how to fix it, not because you have to be. And if they can make that little switch, they're open for education.
Mm-hmm.
And then the education that we provide explains to them why they're still in pain and what the next steps are to change that. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. Yeah, it's great. I love it.
Yeah. So the first thing for you, if you're listening to this, is acknowledgement. Acknowledgement that if you're still in pain, it's because you haven't yet figured out how to change it, not because it's who you are and who you'll always be. Once you acknowledge that, the obvious next question is, well, how do I figure out how to change it? Right? Like I've gone to orthopedists, I've done physical therapy, I've tried working out, I changed my nutrition, I sleep differently. Nothing has worked.
Yeah.
That's good news. Well, how is that good news? It's good news because we can cross all of those things off the list as possible things that are going to change this. What's left? What's left? And that's a totally different question set than what is normally being asked. It's normally, who can I go to help me do this? Who can I go to do this for me? What procedure? What shot? What medication?
What supplement?
What supplement?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Instead,
that conversation is happening actually in my house right now with my wife. Her other shoulder is she had shoulder surgery last year for literally torn bicep right off of her bone.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's having the same pain in her other arm shoulder. And she's like, I don't know what to do. It's gotten worse over 3 months. I don't remember an incident where I ripped it, but I think I should get an MRI or get new supplements or something.
I know a guy. You
know a guy.
So once you identify that, okay, there's another way to think about this, and it's what can I do for myself? Right? As opposed to what can somebody else do for me, what can I do for myself?
Right.
All that you start to look at is what can you do? Well, I can do this. Move over a little bit. I can do this, but doing this, it really hurts. Well, then why are we avoiding doing this? We should do this.
Right.
We should restore this range of motion until this is strong. And then we should push into this one just a little bit until this becomes the normal. And then what can you do and how can you build upon it? As opposed to what can't you do and how can you avoid it? That's the first big mental shift people need to go through to be able to improve the way that they move, the way they feel, the way they feel. Does that make sense, Andy?
That is so important. And it's actually something I just shot a video about regarding the Whole Life Challenge. We're so often focused on what we're missing and what we're not doing. Like you look at the 7 daily habits and the challenge, you look at what you're eating and what you didn't do very well yesterday and what you missed out on. And you forget that if you did, let's just say you made one bad decision and you had one glass of wine. Maybe it wasn't even a bad decision. Maybe it was just, I just had one glass of wine and that caused me to lose a point. Or I had a dessert and that caused me to lose 1 point out of 35 points.
Mm-hmm.
I exercised, I mobilized, I drank water, I did all these other awesome things. And the only thing that you focus on is the fact that you lost 1 point because you ate dessert or you drank a glass of wine. Like we're missing it. We're missing it. There's a context shift that's so important that will pull you forward in your life.
So something that I did on the advice of a coach I had a few years ago to solve for me was I'm what you might call a pragmatic future thinker. We talked earlier about romantic pragmatism, but really I'm always in the future. I don't live very well in the moment. I certainly don't like living in the past. That doesn't make me better than somebody who lives in the moment or in the past. Right? There's value to all of it. And because of the way that I operate, it's very hard for me to celebrate my successes. It's easy for me to look at the things I did wrong and say, how do I make these things better so that next time that doesn't happen again? But it's hard for me to reflect and say, you've done a really good job about just about anything. And so one of my coaches asked me to, at the end of every day, write down 2 things that I did well, that I'm proud of, and 1 thing that I could have done better and how. And that allowed me to be able to say, like, at the end of a week, I can look at 10 things I did really well that I'm proud of. I'm like, wow, I'm actually really proud of what I accomplished this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I can improve on those other things. And I will. And that totally shifted my entire mental perspective about what I need to do. Now, am I perfect at that? No. I suffer from, I mean, we share a coach, right? Ken. Ken will tell you Sean has very little capacity to understand what he's already achieved.
Yes.
It's true. But compared to where that was 5 years ago, light years different.
Right.
Light years different. And so for people who are dealing with physical ailments, I believe that physical ailments that are chronic are actually mental illness, not physical illness. Because it's still there because you've decided to stop trying to fix it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's a mental illness.
So what? Yeah. No, I mean, I have. We've talked about my knee before. I've had knee issues for years. I had knee surgery last year, and had a Baker cyst. They found a little bit of stuff on my medial meniscus. They went in and did the little surgery. I was walking a day later, but my Baker cyst came back a couple of times. I had to have it drained. They said that was pretty normal, given the recovery from the surgery. But it's never been perfect since. I've got a little bit. Still got a little bit of pain, just a tiny little bit. It doesn't stop me from running. Well, if I run, I will feel the Baker cyst filling up again. So it doesn't stop me from cycling. Doesn't stop me from really anything else. So, but you're right. That's the spot I'm in. Like I'm like, it is what it is. Like I'm not going to do anything more to change that or make it better.
Well, and the honest thing about something like a Baker cyst is it might be a constant process of drain, remove, return, drain, remove, return. And it sucks. But if you want to be able to do the things that you want to be able to do and the cyst gets in the way, then it's incumbent upon you to do those things so you can do those things. Right?
I ordered a bunch of needles to try to do that myself. My doctor just was like, dude, don't do that. Don't do that. So I haven't done that yet.
I mean, I can tell you I was with Rich Froning at his house in 2016, 17. And
for anybody that's listening that doesn't know who Rich Froning is, he's won the CrossFit Games, 4 times?
4 times.
One of the fittest humans.
4 times individually, I think.
4 times. 4 times in the team. And probably the 5th time he should have won. He just didn't know how to do a rope climb. He's a pretty ultra fit human.
Yeah. So that was the individual he really lost. Yeah. So he had a Baker cyst when I was working with him. And he's squatting into it, and he's like, it's uncomfortable. I'm like, it's not doing any damage. No, like, just so that you are aware, it doesn't do damage when you squat into it. Does the pain that you feel when you squat into it, knowing that it's not getting worse, reduce just by knowing that the pain doesn't reflect the amount of damage that the cyst is doing or the size of the cyst or anything? He's like, yeah, it does. And then he squatted into it and popped it. By accident. I mean, he was just squatting, but he hadn't squatted to a depth under any kind of a load until that moment. He did. He popped it, and the pain was gone. Totally gone. For the next year that I worked with him, it didn't come back. So part of that also comes to what is pain? Why are you experiencing it? And what does all of that mean? Because Andy, you grew up playing sports, right? You're an athletic guy. You're used to being in the gym, rough and tumble. Do you have friends who aren't? Okay, so
yeah, absolutely.
So imagine a friend of yours who's not from that mindset, who's not from that experience set, and all of a sudden, you guys are walking along the sidewalk and you both trip at the same time. Do you have the same experience? Or do they experience a little bit more pain than you do? right? It's like
they'll be more uncomfortable. They'll have more discomfort. They'll probably not recover from the falling itself as quickly or as easily. Yeah,
but most
and they may get more hurt. Maybe
it's here, right? It hurts them more than it hurts you because you have certainty around what happens next, and they don't. Think of a kid who skins their knee.
I've experienced little. It's like I tell people running when they come home after running or on a run where they have a little bit of pain somewhere in their ankle or their knee. I'm like, do you understand how many times I've experienced pain in my knees, in my hips, in my ankles, in my feet while I'm running, and by the time the run is over, it's gone, or the next day it's gone, or like it. Just because you experience a little pain doesn't necessarily. Now, I don't want to take away from the fact that running causes more injuries than any other sport known to man. But so it could be something real, but it also might not be.
My wrist hurt so bad the other day, so bad that I couldn't open a door or brush my teeth without pain, and no idea where it came from. I just woke up with this atrocious, debilitating wrist pain. I knew that my wrist hurt way too bad. This sounds ridiculous, but I knew it hurt way too bad for that level of pain to last. Right? I'm like, I didn't break it. I didn't fall on it. I didn't tear anything in it. There's no way that I did anything significant enough for this pain to be here. I imagine it'll be gone in 72 hours. 72 hours later, gone. I promise you, it was from some inflammation probably from punching a punching bag too much. I promise you, a lot of people in that same moment, not because they're not as tough as me, but because they don't have any experience like that and don't understand the physiology of what's going on, would have gone to the doctor the same day. You follow? And then they go to the doctor. Doctor gives them a brace, ice, anti-inflammatories, muscle relaxers, which all serve to create.
Okay, so I got a question. If you're that person and you're not you, how do you know the difference? Because I think that's really where, most of the people listening to this are not me or not you, don't have the 20 years or 30 years in the gym or training in their life experience.
Yeah, I can give you the rules that we give our clients.
Let's hear them.
So, rule number one is so let me backtrack a little bit. There are 4 terms you need to know so that we can explain the rules. Term number 1 is insult. Insult is the subconscious intake of stimulus. Everybody is experiencing insult right now. They're sitting down.
The subconscious intake of what?
Stimulus. So atoms are bombarding your body right now, and you don't feel them. You don't care. It doesn't feel relevant. You're comfortable. But if I asked you, stop, stay still for 4 hours, eventually you're going to move. You're going to shift. Do this. If in that moment I was like, "Whoa, Andy, are you okay?" You'd be like, "I'm fine. What are you talking about?
What's wrong with you?" Yeah.
Okay, because I saw, why'd you move? Just to get more comfortable. That moment is what we call irritation. Irritation is the conscious intake of stimulus. I now am aware of what's going on, and I don't like it. I want to move. The next phase is pain. Pain is the negative emotional response associated with irritation. I'm uncomfortable. I don't like it. That's pain. You understand? The last phase is injury. Injury is as simple as the decision that I can't squat. I can't put my arm over my head.
Hmm.
It's a decision. People often tell me I have a knee injury. Do you? You walked
I
in,
love that.
right? You walked in here. Did you bring your knee? Yeah. Well, then what makes you think you have a knee injury? Well, when I squat, it really hurts on the top of my kneecap.
Oh, so you have pain.
Right. So you either have irritation or pain.
Right.
And it's not a knee problem, it's a squatting problem.
Right.
Right? And that takes us out of the whole what is the muscle? What is the tendon? What is the ligament that I did damage to? What's not activating? What is? Doesn't matter. So the next thing is now that we know those 4 phases.
So wait, insult? Insult? Is that what it is?
Insult is subconscious.
Insult, injury.
Nope.
No, insult. I'm thinking insult. You got to add insult to injury. No. So insult,
irritation.
Jeez Louise. Irritation. Insult, irritation, pain, injury.
Yes. So pain is
Okay.
a negative emotional response to irritation. And injury is the decision that I can't.
Yeah.
And irritation is necessary for adaptation. So think about anything in your life.
Right.
Right? You want to become a better person, it's going to be uncomfortable. You want to get out of shoulder pain, it's going to be uncomfortable. So when people tell
you want to get stronger legs, it's gonna be uncomfortable.
Yes, you're going to change your nutrition.
Yeah.
It's going to be uncomfortable. And when people say to you, if it hurts, don't do it. It's incumbent upon them to determine to define hurts.
Right.
Because what if it's irritation and I need that irritation to drive adaptation? See where I'm going?
Yeah, you're more like a goddamn shrink. You're more like a physical therapist shrink than you are like.
Yeah, because here's the thing. There are companies that help gyms grow their revenue, right? And what happens with those gyms is they come to these companies, and these companies give them all of these tactics. Know your numbers. What's a lead cost? What's retention cost? Like all of that. And the gym owner is like, cool, I'm making more money now. This is great. And in a year or two, they're burnt out because they didn't make enough more money. And they were like, I'm not even doing what I like. So when we work with a gym, we're like, what do you like? What do you want your gym to be? What problem do you want to solve? Why do you believe you're perfect to do that? What process do you believe is necessary to do that? Let's get all of that straight, and then we'll figure out how to make that process profitable. When we work with an individual, they've been to physical therapists, they've been to chiropractors, they've been to orthopedists, and those are the tacticians of the rehab space of healthcare. And the tactics in healthcare are rest, ice, compress, elevate, corrective exercise, stretch, strengthen, stim, scrape, foam roll, lacrosse ball. And people do it and they're like, yeah, I feel a little bit better when I do it. But like, then they get burnt out on it because it doesn't work long term.
Right.
So it's necessary for us to change the thought process if we're going to change the function. Because,
okay, so we got those four steps.
Yeah. So the way that we determine now the difference between irritation and pain, which is what your question was, is on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad does it hurt? There has to be some subjectivity to this. Mm-hmm. Is it 5 or higher or 4 or lower? If it's a 5 or higher, we're going to rest it. If it's a 4 or lower, we're going to stress it. Follow?
Mm-hmm.
If it's a 5 or higher when I get to here, but it's a 4 when I'm here, then I'm just going to stay here. Mm-hmm. Until this becomes a 3 and this becomes a 4. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what can I do? How do I expand upon it? So is it a 4 out of 10 or less or a 5 out of 10 or more? It's a 4 out of 10 or less. Great. Let's stress it. Does it get better or worse from rep to rep? So, for example, you ever seen someone with a shoulder problem? They're like, as I do this, it starts to kind of
It gets better. Yeah.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
then resting it is not going to work. That should be common sense, but it's not.
Right.
Because we tell people that hurts, don't do it. So if it gets better from rep to rep, day to day, resting is the wrong thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Third question. When you stop doing whatever it is that elicits discomfort, does that discomfort go away? So I can do this with no weight, but when I add weight, it hurts. Okay, 4 out of 10 or more. 4, no less. Okay, do it. When you put the weight down, does that go away? Yeah, no pain at all once the weight's down. Great, we're not doing damage in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going. Next question. 24 to 48 hours later, is there an onset of elevated discomfort in the area that we taxed? Or not? No. I mean, it's sore, but no increase in pain. Now they're starting to discern soreness from pain.
Right. Right.
No, it's like a 3. They've already changed the terminology. A week ago, that hurt. Today, it's sore. So, great. Let's keep doing it. We haven't created an inflammatory response that was delayed onset. That's how we make decisions about should we rest or should we use. And if we're resting, to what degree? Because if my neck hurts, right, I'm not running to get a brace because my neck hurts. So if my shoulder hurts, why am I going to stop using it all of a sudden?
Right.
Right. And if I did wear a brace, I'm certainly not going to wear that brace forever. It's impractical. So why am I going to stop using my shoulder forever? Right. Your neck is meant to do this. A brace is meant to stop that from happening.
Right.
Why are we going to stop using our shoulder? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense. Right.
So the reason why I'm more shrink than, coach, clinician, if you will, is because it's necessary to unpack all of that. And that takes time. It takes conversation. It takes education for somebody to believe it's true, which allows them to believe there is an opportunity for me to improve, which allows them to believe it's worth the discomfort it's going to take, which allows them to believe I'm in this for longer than I maybe would have before, which allows them to be successful.
Right. Right. And getting that mindset straight is the only way you really have to guarantee success of working with someone. Because if the mindset doesn't get straight, then like you said, you may get temporary shifts and temporary changes, but down the road, it's very high likelihood that will not continue.
No, it's gone. You burn out.
Right.
And we never pick up a client on the crux that we're a mindset company.
Right.
They'd be like, well, I don't have a mindset problem. My shoulder hurts.
Well, they don't think they have a mindset problem.
Correct.
Right.
And this is where I think a lot of people, a lot of businesses at least, make mistakes because they've evolved. Right? People who own businesses, work in business, have evolved. They're no longer excited about solving the problem that they used to solve because they realized it was a symptom of a bigger problem. And now they just want to solve the bigger problem.
Right.
What they fail to remember is that the people who come to them don't necessarily recognize the bigger problem. They recognize the small one that they feel every day. And so if you're talking to the bigger one, people who don't identify with that will not come.
Right.
And you will not be able to solve it.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, look, I don't know that any business is immune from that. We get sucked into that. Michael and I, when we shoot our videos, very often are talking about bigger topics that are more real world and whole world rather than on something that's, in the minutia of one of the 7 daily habits. And we have to constantly remind ourselves to bring it back to fundamentals.
Well, I think that for you guys and for your clients, members, the thing that makes that real is this is the big picture. This is the first step.
Right.
Do you want to be on the path to that picture? This is what you need to do then. And this is why it's more important than just this step.
Yeah, I love that. I love the context, and then I love the progression and the education that that you use to really, you're helping someone become their own healer.
Yeah. And the best thing about it, Andy, is once they've made that transformation, they stop allowing people around them not to.
Right.
They can no longer be in the world with people who are playing the victim because they don't know any better. Because now they do.
Right. Well, and this is something that can actually extend out into all different areas of their life. Unbeknownst, they're getting experience in this one area, but it's a great philosophy for the rest of your life. It's really the way I always tell people, look, you're the CEO of your life. Stop abdicating. You're the king. Stop abdicating the throne.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you surrender all your power to somebody else to make decisions for you?
Mm-hmm.
You decide for yourself. Like the doctor is going to give his best shot. You've got to live in that body for the rest of your life. Like
too many people are looking for passive solutions to active problems.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. And then how does your process look? So let's say somebody like loves what you're saying, has a shoulder problem, and they want to reach out to you and work with you. Like, do you do that by email? Do you do it by videos? Do you do it online? Do they have to come to where? I don't even know where you guys are. Are you in Boston? Where are you guys?
I'm in Long Beach, New York.
Okay, I did know that, but I forgot.
All right. Boston's a place.
I knew you were on the East Coast.
So
Boston is a place.
If you're in New York, Boston is kind of like,
It's a suburb. Boston's a suburb of New York, right?
Kind of, yeah, exactly.
Ask a Patriots fan if they're a suburb of the Giants.
Why would I ask a Patriots fan anything?
I don't know. I have no idea.
So, the way it works is the first thing we do is make sure we can help people. So we speak to them over the phone. They talk to somebody who's on our sales team. And yes, it is a sales call. But we only make the sale if we're confident in the outcome. Right? We still refer out 35% of people who jump on a call with us because we can't help them. Or at least we're not sure we can help them. And once they've signed up, once they've enrolled, the next step is they get assigned to a coach and they're given an assessment by that coach based on their intake. Right? So they're assigned to a coach. That coach gets on the phone with them, talks about the problem and the solution that they want. And then they write them an assessment to identify the low-hanging fruit that they can fix. Then they go over the assessment, explain to the client what happened, what they need to work on, why they need to work on it, how they're going to feel along the way. So it's predictable. Then they start writing the client a totally custom, from scratch program that includes exercises, movement, habits, all to affect the mindset through the body. And every week, based on performance, they progress that program.
How does the client learn how to do that stuff? Do they do it like in a video conversation, like so they can see?
We have 600 something movement demo videos.
Okay.
We have an extensive library, and it's all on there.
Gotcha.
And the client has an opportunity to send video for the coach to review and provide feedback. It's comprehensive.
I love it. It's great.
Me too. And we're going to make it better.
Are more of your clients, I would guess more of your clients are not in person. You have a lot
in person.
Say again?
0 clients.
Zero.
Yeah.
So what do you use that gym for?
Video shoots.
So that's not a place that the clients come in and work with you guys.
No.
Wow.
Yeah. It's cool. What we're going to start doing after the COVID thing in New York is over is rent it out to personal trainers to use when we're not shooting. But right now, video. Right.
Brilliant. I love it.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. I've learned that over time of doing lots and lots of podcasts that more is not necessarily better. Although I'm sure we would generate some really fun stuff to talk about. The chances of people hanging in and continuing to listen, much more beyond. I mean, look, my goal really for all these conversations is 30 minutes. I haven't made that yet. So we're at 50 right now, and I think we're good. So I really appreciate you taking the time, and I really appreciate what you do and the way you go about doing it, because it's really different and it empowers people. And that's really my mission in life, is to help people take some ownership and take some responsibility for their life, and realize that they can do it.
I appreciate you for that, Andy. Our mission statement is humanize the doctor, professionalize the coach, to empower the individual. And the way that we define empowerment is providing you with the opportunity to make the next decision. That's it. If you have the power to make the next decision, you are empowered to do anything that you want.
I love it.
And I appreciate you saying that.
All right. Well, hang on. I'm going to end the broadcast, and I want to talk to you. All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here. See ya.